Hi, I'm Michelle. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my March reading wrap up. So, in the month of March, I read 7 books, which is like significantly less than I need to be reading in order to hit my reading goal. I am already, we're 1 quarter into the year, and I am 11 books behind my reading goal. Oops. Well, last year I didn't get to this point until like summertime. So honestly, this like doesn't bode well for me. It truly doesn't. Oh, now I'm 12 books behind actually. Just looked at my story graph. I went on a trip for March. I was gone. I was in Scotland and England, mostly London, for 10 days in the month of March. And I like truly thought I had like big aspirations for reading, and I read like next to nothing while I was gone. So that's part of it. Another part of it was I did get stuck in the first Zodiac Academy book. I was trying to read Zodiac Academy because all the girls love it. And by all the girls, I mean the TikTok girlies, the booktube girlies, my mom. My mom loves Zodiac Academy. And I was like, I want to read Zodiac Academy because, again, if anything is going to be hyped up, something about me that you should know is that I'm going to want to read that. And I'm like 40% into the first book and I just like cannot get through it. I just like, it's not for me. And I've heard that the first book is kind of rough, but it gets better. But like the first book has like been really rough. It's been really rough. It's like a bully romance, and I think the bully romance part fades out a little bit, but like, I don't know. I don't know if I should press on. I'm like debating. I'm going back and forth if I should press on and try to get through the series in order to just like get into the good books, or if I should just give up. Anyway, that's where I spent a lot of energy this month though, was like trying to get into Zodiac Academy because I want to be a Zodiac Academy girl. Okay, I guess we'll get into the books that I like actually read now. So the first book, if you remember, last month left us with a Lily Gold book. This month I just like started in on a Lily Gold book. I started with Nanny for the Neighbors by Lily Gold. I'll pop the cover up. Over here? I don't know, somewhere. You'll see it. And this book, so Lily Gold's books are all what I like to call teamwork romances. I stole that from someone on TikTok. I don't remember who. I apologize. Like reverse harems sometimes. Sometimes they're called Why Choose, but I don't like that name. Why Choose is weird to me. So I like teamwork. And so there's 1 girl, 3 guys, and all of Lily Gold's books, I think, all the ones I've read. And so first I read Nanny for the Neighbors. So the premise of this book is that a baby gets dropped off at this apartment complex's doorstep. And it belongs to these 3 men who live in an apartment together. They're all bestie bros. And they don't know whose baby it belongs to because they were in a relationship, all 3 of them, with the baby's mama. But they don't know how to care for a baby because they're a bunch of bachelors. And so they enlist the help of this woman who lives like a floor down from them, who's like a professional nanny. And then obviously their relationship turns into more. And they start a romance with her. And it's like a cute, fun time. It's fun. Lily Gold's books are like charming and like very spicy, but also like heartwarming at the same time. It's like truly everything I could want from a romance. And then I read another one. This I would say was probably the weakest of Lily Gold's books. Did I still have a great time? Yeah. But I think there was a little bit less, though still some, maybe more than you would expect, emotional like character building in this. I think this might be one of her first books that she published. This one was 3 Swedish Mountain Men. It was about this young woman who like is fleeing something bad happened to her. She's fleeing to Sweden. She's from England. And she flees to Sweden and she crashes her car on the Swedish mountainside. And these 3 men rescue her. They live on the mountainside. And then they all fall in love. She's an artist. Like I said, something terrible happened to her. There's heavier topics dealt with in this book. As in all Lily Gold books, I don't know, it just like what didn't quite hit the same emotional depths as the other ones. But like I said, they're like still good and spicy and like a great time. Then we continued on this romance kick, and I read In a Jam by Kate Canterbary. I actually think this is the only book I finished on my 10-day trip. I started, like I said, a few others, but this is the only one I actually like started and finished. This book is a small town romance. It gives me like B.K. Borson Love Light Farms vibes. So if you've read that or if you've heard about that, similar vibes. This is about this woman. I think she's like a teacher. Yes, she's a teacher, but she gets this inheritance of her step-grandmother's tulip farm. And she's like a little confused because like it wasn't her real grandmother. But like whatever, she goes up there, and the terms of inheritance are she has to live there and she has to be married within the year in order to keep the tulip farm. And so she strikes up a deal with this man who lives next door, and she's gonna like just like do a like essentially like a paperwork marriage with him in order to maintain her inheritance. And he also happens to be like her high school best friend, but they've like lost touch over the years. And he is also watching his niece, his sister is in prison. It's a lot is happening. And so he's raising his niece as like kind of like his daughter. There's a lot going on, but it's a bop of a time. I loved it. I thought it was super sweet, super heartwarming, super lovely. And then I read the second book in the Knock 'Em Out series, Things We Hide from the Light. This is the pink one by Lucy Score. I've read the blue one. I don't remember what the blue one is called. I feel like they all have very long titles that are not very descriptive of the books. I do have a gripe with the titles of this series, but this book follows we met the girl in the last book. She's like the friend. I don't know. We don't know what she does exactly. And then we're following the guy from the last books, his brother. So his brother and his friend are now in a relationship, and his brother is like a total like wife dude. Like he just wants to get married and have kids and like settle down, but he's still reeling from the events from the last book because like he got shot in the shoulder or something. And the girlie is like, she does not want to settle down. She like doesn't like small town life at all, but they have feelings for each other, and they're living next door to each other for reasons. There's like a weird investigation going on. This book was like crazy pants. Like a lot was happening, but it was a good time. I like a story that's a little bit crazy pants. I was not bored. Yeah, a little wild. I think the first book is slightly stronger, but like if you liked the first book, you'll probably like the second one too. Then we totally switched gears entirely, and I read Confessions by Kanae Minato. This is a work in translation from Japanese. It is like a thriller-esque book. I don't know, I hesitate to call it like a straight up thriller because I feel like thriller indicates like you're in danger, you know, like the main character that you're following is in some sort of danger, and that's not the case here. There's like kind of a mystery element. There is maybe like a slight thriller element. It's unlike anything I've read before. So we start with this, the first chapter is told from this perspective of this teacher whose daughter has died recently, and she has her whole class gathered around her, and she's explaining why she's retiring. And like something terrible has happened. And then we follow a different character's perspective each chapter as they kind of talk about how this crime that happened affected their lives. I don't want to talk about it without giving too much away because I really think things are like revealed quite slowly throughout the book, but it was a really interesting story, and it was a structure and like story that I hadn't read before, which is like my biggest requirement right now with thrillers is I really want to have something new and fresh when I'm reading a thriller. And it was new and fresh. Then I read a really fun thriller. I really enjoyed this one. Read it in a single sitting. It was like exactly what I look for in like a Saturday afternoon book. And that is 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. This is my first Holly Jackson. I know she's like quite popular for her Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. And I think I'm going to read that. But I wanted to try out Holly Jackson before I committed to a series. And so I gave this one a shot and I really enjoyed it. It gives me very similar vibes to No Exit by Taylor Adams, which is like one of my favorite thrillers. This story follows... There's 6 teenagers. They're going on this RV trip for their spring break. They're all like older teenagers too. I think they're between like 17 and 21. The ages are pretty similar to that of our main character in No Exit. Honestly, it like made me ponder the like conversation around, are women reduced to YA authors even when they're writing the same story as like men who are writing for adults. It happens a lot in fantasy. I almost feel like that's the case here, although Holly Jackson does have like a pretty substantial teen audience, and that's probably why they wanted to do it. But honestly, it read very similar to No Exit. Perhaps it's a little less gruesome than No Exit. No Exit gets like kind of graphic in terms of violence, and this one I didn't feel like was super graphic, although there is some substantial violence. Anyway, it's following these 6 kids on an RV trip. They get a flat tire on their RV as they're kind of like pulling off. They're a little turned around and they're trying to find their campsite. They get a flat tire. Something goes awry. Kind of crazy, fast-paced, and only 5 survive, hence the title. It takes place over the course of a single evening, similar to No Exit, and so you really have that like fast-paced, edge of your seat feeling. Once I got into the story, I like truly read it in a sitting. Like what a great like fast-paced time perfect for what I needed. And then the final book I read this month was Lie With Me by Philippe Besson. This is a pretty short novel. I think it took me like 2, maybe 3 hours to read. And it's translated from French by Molly Ringwald. And I did feel like the translation work that she did was a little clunky at times. And perhaps I was like going in a little bit with like eyes to see that, because I had read on multiple occasions when looking at this book that was the case, and I felt it a few times where there was just like instances in which I was like, oh, I'm not familiar with French, I don't speak French, but like things felt like jarring. So there's this concept over and over again. It follows this young man who's a teenager. He's like 17 at the beginning of the book, and they keep talking about the kids going out to recess, and like in America that has like a very specific context, and like even if that's what the word translates directly to, it didn't make sense for these high schoolers to constantly be at recess time, because like high schoolers in the States do not have recess, and it just like felt weird. Like there sometimes felt like not an awareness of like the cultural context, because you have to be aware of both cultural contexts as you're translating, the cultural context of the language you're translating from and to. And I think I was also more aware because I've recently read Babel by R.F. Kuang, and she talks a lot about translation in that book, but I didn't think the translation was excellent. It's compared a lot to Call Me By Your Name, and I think if you're only going to read one of these two novels, they do have kind of similar-ish premises, I guess. They're both about young gay men and kind of their first like big love. But I feel like Call Me By Your Name is so lushly written. Like the writing in that novel is just like stunning. You like truly feel like you are in an Italian summer. And the writing here felt like it just kind of conveyed the story. Like there were a few parts where I was like kind of struck by the writing, but it didn't blow me away in terms of writing. And the story is kind of simplistic. It's following these teen boys and their like first love, and then this man is now an adult and he's kind of reflecting back on this. He's a writer and he's like reflecting back. It also does seem like this is kind of an autobiographical work based on the author, because like I said, the main character is a writer in the book, and several of his novels have the same names of the novels that the actual author has written. So I would be curious to have a little bit more context around him as an author as well. I did feel like this work was like very decontextualized for me as someone reading it in translation, which was kind of a bummer. But works in translation is definitely one of those areas in which I would love to read more of, because I just think there's something very enriching about reading stories from different cultures and different languages in a way that you're unable to do when everything's written in English, even if they're from another country. So like hopefully I read more works in translation this year than just these two. I don't know. Anyway, side note. That is all I read. Like I said, it was not a great reading month for me. Maybe this month will be so good. I like really do need to like dedicate a few weekends to reading. Last month I was like on deadline and then went on a trip and then came back and was like recovering from that trip for most of the month. So I guess that makes sense. This month I don't have any trips planned. I don't have anything major planned except, being here. I don't think I'll have any major deadlines this month either. I'm working on, as far as book stuff, do you guys care? I'm going to tell you anyway. If you don't know, my first book, No Child of Mine, is coming out in September, and I'm like completely done, I think, with like all of the process of doing this. Essentially, it goes to print now and is like with those people. But I just turned in my second book to my editors before I went on that trip, so at the beginning of March, and should be getting edits back maybe this month, maybe next month, maybe the month after. I never know. I don't know what the schedule is for edits ever. But I'm also brainstorming with my agent about my third book. So exciting things are happening. This is like the most fun part of writing for me, is coming up with the ideas. And we're in the fun part for book 3 right now. We're about to get to my least favorite part for book 2, which is that first round of developmental edits where you have to like restructure the story. Whew, that'll be coming up. Hopefully in May. I'm like hoping I have another month off before I have to start those, because once those start, like truly, they like take everything out of me. So, or at least they did last time. We'll see how this time goes. Anyway, subscribe. I hopefully will have a few videos out this month since I have some extra time, and I will see you in those videos. I will talk to you next time. Bye.